Good morning. We're going to go ahead and start with the raffles this morning. Thank you for everybody for sticking around. You have to be present to win, just so you know. If you're not here, we count to 3, and then we pick a new card. So those who have filled out exhibitor bingo cards, you guys are doing pretty awesome right now, because I'm going to pull a couple from there as well. And again, if you do the exhibitor cards, sign the back of them, put your name, but make sure you just go around and get to the exhibitors that are at their booths. If you gave me a card yesterday, it's not in this set, so you need to put a new card, just so everybody knows. Brought my list. All right, the first giveaway we have this morning is it's like hitting a brick wall when you run into me, Brian. Be careful. I tell everyone. You're so funny. Everyone's got jokes this morning. Here we go. We're going to have a great little gift bag from Tucson, along with earphones from Superior Aviation. John Stout, our wonderful president, and our current Vanna is going to pull the first card.
Judy Ross.
Judy Ross, you're the first winner. Yay. And then I always say the best gift keeps on giving, so whatever you don't like, you get to bring it in for your staff. Don't share the secrets. No, just kidding. All right, the next one is a $25 Amazon gift card from 80K Consulting Executive Search, along with an all-weather polo.
Jessica Turner with Armstrong.
Jessica Turner with Armstrong. They were here this morning. There we go. Here she comes. Perfect. All right. The next one we got is a nice portfolio along with the apron from the Navajo Nation. Let's go ahead and pull a bingo card for that one.
Okay.
It is John Stout who went around to the exhibitors. There you go. All right, we're going to go back over to our, there you go, our business cards. We've got a nice little basket from my team down in Yuma. And again, please don't feel obligated to keep every part of it. Give it away. Give parts of it away. I'm not offended. So you got a Fly Yuma basket.
Judy Krause, Kaufman Associates.
Judy, I know I just saw her walk out the door, but I don't know if she came back into the door. Did she go? Ooh, that's hard. When can't do it, you gotta be here. You kind of look like Judy, Matt. Gotta put on some high heels and a wig. There we go.
Barney.
Barney, here you go. Come on up. Your heels do work. All right, the next one we have is a great little goodie bag over from Reno Tahoe, along with some Superior Aviation earphones.
Okay. She won yesterday. I don't want to make sure. Lyle. Delia Chi, RSNH.
She did. Hey, the way it works is need to be present to win, and I put new cards in every day.
I swear I didn't put 2 in.
No, you don't. It's a new card every day. All right, the next one we have is a $25 Starbucks card from Swai along with Superior Aviation earphones.
Kenneth Moen, Carson City Airport.
Yeah, oh, look at that. No, all right, the next one we have is a Navajo tea set with a mug and coasters. That's yours.
Scott Van Gumpel.
Scott Van Gumpel.
Very interesting, the interesting relationships that the two countries have, given the overall political climate that goes on, and just the agreements.
All right, the last one is a $50 Bloomin' Brands gift card along with an EEC environmental magnetic building blocks.
Robbie Robinson, Associated Asphalt.
You're going to help him.
Right behind you.
Perfect, here you go. All right, what we're going to do is in the next session right before we'll pull another card. We've had a $100 gift card from HMMH, and we're going to do it right before the next session, so everybody has about 5 minutes to visit. Please visit with the exhibitors. If I get more bingo cards, we may be pulling from those. I need to get a few more of those in there. So please go around and meet with the exhibitors, and thank you, everyone. See you in the next session in about 5 minutes. Test. On the bingo cards, the middle connect one does not need to be signed unless you want John Stout's signature, which is worth millions. So again, the exhibitor bingo card, the middle connect, you do not have to have it signed unless you want John's signature. We'll be starting the next session here in the next few minutes, so if you would like to grab your drinks, and whatever else you'd like to bring into the conference room. We're going to start our next session here. Again, everyone, let's go ahead and start making our way back into the conference room for our next session. Catherine Bales, if you can go over to the signature booth, Miss Mary needs to see you. All right, we got the next session starting, so let's go ahead and make our way back into the conference room. The next session is starting. We're going to do a drawing as well, a $100 gift card from HMMH. So those who are present in the conference room, you're eligible for that drawing. Let's go ahead and make our way back in. Mr. Stout. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and do our drawing. We're going to get focused for our next session. $100 from HMMH. I want to say thank you. Thank you to everybody who's provided door raffles. We really appreciate that. It's not just free advertisement, it's pure enjoyment. So here we go.
Michael Kovault, Delta Airport Consultants.
Michael Kovault. The way it works, we count to 3 and we move on. Michael Kovault. 1, 2, 3, and you're gone. Oh, I'm fast. He is working. I know he's working.
Should we give this to him?
Yep.
Mr. EP.
Is Eric Peterson in the room? Yay, so everybody knows thank you for all his hard work as well. The universe has rewarded you. Here you go, all those times, spend it, have fun. Thank you. And everybody too, thank you for all you do. Our AV keeps us alive, so we appreciate you guys. Here we are to the next session.
Thank you. All right, is everybody ready? Yes. Woo! All right, and after this is lunch, so this is like a home stretch here a little bit for this morning. First, thank you very much. My name is Kevin Flynn, and I'll be facilitating this session. And we want to thank our sponsors for this. It's City of Phoenix Aviation Department and DWL Architects and Planners, Inc. So we have up there what the session is, Session 5, Evolving Managers and Culture. And we're going to run down the panel real quick, and people can introduce themselves. And then eventually we'll move into lunch, and I think there's some elections coming up and things like that. So without further ado, we'll go down the row here. Joey, you want to start?
Hey, I'm Joey O'Rourke. I'm the Assistant Airport Director at the Laughlin Bullhead International Airport.
I'm Jennifer Maples. I'm at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. I work in facilities and services.
I'm Judy Ross. I'm from Mineta San Jose International Airport, the fastest growing airport in the last 2 years in the United States.
Andy Swanson, City of Palo Alto Airport Manager, and a small GA airport, very busy small GA airport.
So good morning, everyone. Mike Williams. I'm the manager of the FAA's Phoenix Airports District Office. I have no commercial to add.
Just give us the money. Yeah.
Joe's looking for money.
Hey, Kevin, watch that table right there in the front. Rod Rose.
So between the peanut gallery, the money comments, and the Russian consulate out front for the election, it's we're off to a strong start.
Time for lunch yet?
Let's see, going on. So when we were putting the panel together, we were starting to strategize on it. One of the first things that came up is what is leadership, and we don't need to get into it. And we want to complement and grow on some of the discussions that happened yesterday. So somebody told me about Wiki, I went there. Somebody told me about Webster. I got sets of those at home. But the bottom line is we all start to think of leadership as, we automatically assume that leadership means good leaders. There's bad leaders. You can still be a leader, you can be a bad leader. So what we're going to talk about is what makes good leaders and how they implement it, and rely on these guys here to tell us. Ultimately, we have a big list of things that we want in leadership, our leadership. Bottom line is we can't really afford them all, we can't retain them all, we can't find them all, and then eventually we don't listen to them. So, we have a bunch of challenges here, so we'll talk through a little bit of that. And I'm going to go pretty quick, but in terms of the leadership list, everybody has a different list. But again, the bottom line is, if you find somebody that does all of this, all of the time, you can't afford them. So trustworthy, complimentary, I don't need to read it all. But the way we're going to do this is we're going to, I got a list of about 10 questions. When we practiced earlier, we got through one. So we'll try and do a little better than that. We'll try and make this free-flowing to the best we can and still retain control out of it. This table over here will have to be quiet. And then we'll go from there. And then if there's a particular subject matter that's getting everybody fired up and it's kind of fun, then we'll stick with it. But we'll try and get through a number of questions and make this a two-way street. So what is great cheatership? Leadership. What does great leadership look like? And some of the things we want to get into. And when we were first talking about this, and when I was talking with Kelly and those at Sacramento about, what's a good topic? And some of the things that came to mind were we keep talking about the millennials and how we deal with them. I think we should turn it around the other way and say, how do they deal with the leaders a little bit for this discussion. Hiring, mentoring, transition planning, we talked about a little bit. I think there was a fair amount of discussion on that yesterday, but if we can complement on that, awesome. And then planning for tomorrow. And then in terms of questions, discussion, and caveat, I talked about format a little bit. But the caveat is we all like to talk to each other as leaders and go, hey, this is how we do it, this is how I do it, because we assume we do it right. To the extent we can, we want to talk about the realities of how to implement it and what does and doesn't work, not just how we do it at our place, but you know what, we tried this, it didn't work, or this is what we should be doing, or this is what we should be doing, but I never do it, I never think about it until next time I'm supposed to present on it. So how do you make time to do it right, and that kind of thing. So with that, I'm gonna jump into the questions. And any questions? We good? All right, so we came up with the 10 questions. We went down the table, and I said, who doesn't want to answer a particular one? And everyone said, no, I'm good, bring it on. And then they all said, but this one looks squirrely, so I figured I'd start with that one. So whether it's changing culture, motivating a demotivated staff, breaking down the good old boy network, or having discussions about Me Too, harassment, LGBT, what are your organizations doing? What should your leadership be doing? Are they doing it? And some of the things that, I just want to say the last comment before we open it up is a lot of leaders, you read in the paper or the news that, yeah, we're doing it left and right, and then they query the staff, and 80% of the staff says, yeah, I've been harassed. So it's an active thing. I think we as a discipline in aviation and things like that, we're probably pretty good. But with that, I'll turn it on, and who wants to start? Judy, you're in the middle. How about you start? And I can repeat the question if you'd like.
I have it in front of me. I know when this question first came up, I said, well, you have to treat people right, and right is different for different people. The way that I want to be treated is going to be different from the way somebody else want to be treated. I know there was the golden rule, treat others as you would want to be treated, but really you have to turn it upside down and treat them as they want to be treated. And if you go through the organization, and most of my job is really the cultural fit and managing the culture of our organization, and that means a lot of different things. But when I go to the engineering staff and the development staff, their numbers, they're very analytical. They want to be treated a certain way. And if you go through the different generations in the workforce, each generation, there's a lot of commonalities, but you have to turn it a little bit and, again, treat them the way they want to be treated. But if I go over to the marketing team, and they're the fun-loving, and they want to be treated differently, and Rosemary's out there dancing, you can see what I mean when I walk around. But you have to get a sense, and you don't get that sense by staying in your office. And so as much as I can, I try to walk through the work areas, and it's, I could take ways around where I just avoid everybody, or I could go outside, walk outside till I get to the point where I want to go, but it doesn't do me any good. It does me good by actually walking through the workstations. And again, people, you can say you have an open door policy, and there are people that will just walk in, but others, they'll hang out that door and wait for you to say, you can come on in. But they feel the most comfortable in their work area. So if they want to tell you something or talk to you about something, if you're available to them where they are, you will more than likely hear it. And the more experience you get this other sense. And when you're walking around, you can get a sense of what's going on in the work areas, and if you have to make any adjustments or provide some coaching or whatever. But it's really about treating people the way they want to be treated.
And real quick, I just want to ask, with Judy's comment, how many engineers are there in the room? Okay, and how many marketing people are in the room? Okay, because the marketing people apparently are fun, and the engineers are not. All right. Okay. Andy.
Well, and just to kind of add on to that, and kind of from my perspective, Judy and I are neighbors, so we kind of, big airport, little GA airport, we have different challenges, but I think one of the things, and I really saw it yesterday when we looked at these other sessions, and there was a lot of common tales there that came out of that. You know, you talk about the different generations, but maybe how you approach the different generations different, but really what I see is that there's a core thing, and I kind of summarize it up as, you know, you have good employees that perform, and they perform for different reasons, and you got to find out what works for that. And you have employees not so good, but in all the generations, you know, we're looking for those performers, those that have the attributes and the abilities to fit the team. And so I think it's just how you approach, and it's a little different way. And we're learning. One of the things we do, and I heard Judy talk about walking. Well, our management team, it's small, but we started 2 years ago. We have a walking meeting once a week, and we actually hit our tenants. We walk around. Everybody knows us. We get feedback. Same thing with the employees. So, and we're learning all the time. We're not. Nobody has the. You know, we don't just approach it just with one person's, you know, idea. We take all the ideas, bring it together, and make our decisions. And I think it's. I've heard so much about, well, it's different with this generation, it's different with that. Yeah, I'm sure, you know, we heard our parents, and, you know, that's going to be, but we just have to figure out, okay, what's the fit, and how do you motivate that individual too? It really comes down to the individual, and they may be very talented in certain areas, in other areas not so much. You have another employee that fills that gap, and we do a lot of that. You know, it's like it's not just hiring all the same, you know, like all Andys or all Judys. You know, we have these all, you know, Mikes or Jennifers or Joeys. And not Kevin's, definitely not a bunch of Kevin's, no. No, I'm kidding, but I think that's where it kind of comes down to. It's that fit for your organization. And one of the things that I think I learned in my tenure with the city is don't cave. And if it's not in that pool, don't force it. And my city manager's a big believer in that. And we've gone with very high level city management positions empty, just till we get the right fit.
So good morning again. I'm Jennifer with Sky Harbor. So I'm going to back up a minute and give a little context to my answer. One of the great things about this panel and a lot of the sessions we've seen today is the diversity represented on the panel, and Andy pointed out the size of airports, that sort of stuff. So the perspective I'm coming from, I've spent my entire airport career at Sky Harbor, 22 years, and we have 902 employees, and that's just Sky Harbor. The city itself, we're a city-run airport, has upward of 15,000 employees. Myself, I manage 50. So in a scalability aspect, the larger something is, the slower it moves. That being said, one of the things the city has been incredibly proactive about is understanding societal trends and how it's impacting our workforce and trying to stay ahead of it and to mitigate it and actually tackling those challenging topics. One of the statistics I wanted to get my hands on before this session was kind of understanding what our current turnover is, what our hiring rate is, and it was startling. And I'll just share with you, right now our vacancy rate is only 6%, which is not too bad. Turnover the last year, though, has been 10%, so 90 people. Over the last year, those that left, 82% of them left the industry, left the airport, left everything. Only 18% actually promoted from within. And we're focused right now on workforce planning efforts because of the expected additional retirements coming up. And I think that that's something that our entire industry is facing, and that's something that we've been talking about in sessions and on the side is we need to be bringing the next generation of leaders along. We need to get them on our board here at SWI. We need to get them engaged. It's imperative that we do that. So as far as those difficult subjects, diversity and inclusion is something that if you understand the value that having somebody different from you brings to the team, it's invaluable. It's a fantastic thing, because you don't want, like Andy said, you don't want a bunch of the same people on your team. You're only going to be able to do one thing well. But in order to cover all the bases, you want to try to hire and promote and encourage those that have skills that are different than you, so that you complement each other and you work more effectively as a team. But we also have those things that are happening, like the Me Too movement, and recently we had some challenges with a lot of racial slurs at work, and our equal opportunity department was keeping track of this and immediately tackled it and went in and was reviewing our policies and our training and just really kind of revamping it, going, all right, we got to get this under control. Same with the Me Too movement. We started reevaluating our sexual harassment policies and training, and are we tackling it the way we need to? Are we keeping up with the evolving culture? So I think that's one of the things the city's been pretty good at, despite the size. One of the things they've started is an engagement and inclusion team. And you know, it sounds like pretty words and stuff, but they're actually going into every single division, all across all levels, all demographics, trying to get a group of people together to really talk through and come up with the ways that we can educate each other on the value of diversity. One of the things the city's been doing for a number of years is actually diversity brown bags. So where an employee with the city of Phoenix, again, we're upward 14, 15,000, who has a different faith, a different background, nationality, whatever it is, culture, there's an opportunity to get together and learn from those people and from each other. And that's been something that's been, I think, very well received. The other thing the city's pretty good about is allowing and encouraging employee groups. We have employee groups, Women in Leadership. We have the LGBT Alliance, Phoenix Hispanic Network, Phoenix Asian League, Employees for Christ. So it's all across the board, and the city is trying to use that as a platform to, again, promote the diversity and inclusion, and hopefully bridge the gaps that can sometimes happen, especially in a larger organization.
Joey?
That was a lot of good stuff there. I was part of a big organization as well. I was one of 2,800 people in an organization, just a number, to where now I'm one of 24. And my position, my role is really to engage with all the employees and employee relations. And the big thing for me is what I've learned through my career and with emergency management and the diverse airports that I've been at, is really taking the time to understand the person and the individual, who they are. If people are feeling valued and they understand the vision of the organization and where we want to go and how we can set forth goals and help that and put the time and energy into the individual, you get a better product. I feel, though, for me and my organization that I deal with now, I have a lot of feedback from every single employee. It's very important that every employee has a voice, every employee has their input, I will never start with no, I'll always start with yes, but it might not end in yes, it might not end in no, but we'll try to get there. And I think it's really important to have an educational system where we're informing and, just like Jennifer said, evolving culture with harassment, LGBT, diversities. We have a little bit of diversity in our airport where we have some folks who don't speak English very well. So when I sit down with them to do their performance evaluations, that's a challenge I have to face. But that doesn't mean they're any less of a person. It's just a challenge that we work around, and we enhance that challenge, and we see it as an opportunity, not really a challenge. But I really think that, you come from a really big organization, I come from a small organization, and I think a lot of us here are maybe in between. And I think if we spend a little bit more time engaging and treating people as a person and not just what they're there to do for work, I think we'll have a better outcome.
So let me ask the question the other way. We've all talked about what we would do with staff, and then whether or not staff is comfortable, or staff level up, down, whatever. If they're comfortable coming to you, if you're trying to make that open communication, and we all like to think that we have open communication with those that are working for us or with us or whatever. But if you asked them, this is rhetorical on some level, would they all say the same thing? Oh yeah, I can say anything. Or take it one other level and say, most of us work for somebody, whether it's city manager, public works, director, manager, whatever. Are you comfortable going to that person and basically saying anything? Your comment was out of line, your whatever was inappropriate. And that's the kind of leadership we want, is when we can do that. And if we're not comfortable doing it and not standing up to do it, then we can't really expect the people that are working for us to do it. So the culture has to go up, not just down. And I don't know how much that exists. So before we go to a next question, anyone else want to, everyone's really quiet. Anyone want to jump in on that? Because if you don't have questions, I'll pick on people. Questions? Right here. Here you go, Ray. Ready?
Okay, so a lot of you said hire for a good fit, and then there was a turnaround to say, but we intentionally hire people who are diverse and have diverse opinions. So how do you kind of come in the middle of understanding that the person you may hire may initially rub you as maybe not good fit traditionally, but they're going to bring a different opinion or different perspective to the table?
Let's start with Mike. He's really quiet down on the end, and he didn't get to weigh in.
Choosing the best candidate for any organization includes all the things you've just talked about. It depends what you're trying to get. In some cases, your office culture can just need reinforcing. It's moving along in a certain way. It's getting where it needs to go. You as a leader see it that way. But then there are times when you may need to adjust the culture. And there's a lot of things as managers and leaders that you can do about the culture that exists within your organization. Hiring is just one of them. So my input on your question is really that, the best candidate involves all those things. And certainly there's a technical competency that you have to respond to as well. But just because someone has a different opinion doesn't mean it's bad or they're wrong. And, many of you in this room work project development. And I'm pretty sure there's not one of you out there that's had a project that started with one idea and that's how it ended up all the way through. Nobody ever said no, nobody ever questioned it, nobody ever challenged it. It's a process. It's a process of iteration. And so I'm not sure that I'm really helping to answer your question or if I'm dodging it, but I am a Fed, so.
I'd just like to kind of flip this question, but to the audience, kind of that from the employee or interviewee's perspective, I really think, and this will sound like, oh yeah, you can't do that in ways you can't, but as your career goes on, you can. Don't pick your job, pick your boss. And I think you really think about that. And as your first job, no, that's pretty tough, but you can work in a not such a great job with a great boss that supports you, that promotes you, if you're, and it fights for you. But if you work with not such a great boss and a great job, that could be really detrimental to your career and just self-worth and feeling good about your position. So.
We've got another question right here.
So I just wanted to comment on that. I personally think hiring is the single most important thing we do. Getting the right people on the bus, as it were, or the plane or the train. It's fundamental to your success. Sometimes fit is based on what you're trying to accomplish at that point in time. Sometimes fit means you need someone from the outside with new, fresh ideas and enthusiasm to reinfuse the group. Sometimes fit means that there's such a technical level of expertise required, you're going to go with the person who brings that to the table. So fit isn't, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's very subjective to the situation.
Not a question, but more of a comment. My name is Orlando Teller. I'm with the Navajo Nation, and what I'm hearing on the panel is similar to what we deal with on Navajo. 99.5% of my employees are Navajo, Native American. The 0.5% that's not Native American is sitting behind me because he's half Navajo and half non-Navajo. Yeah. So when we have to deal, we have to manage and mitigate and facilitate diversity issues within our culture as well. LGBT, the multiple religious aspects of what our people follow, traditional Catholicism or others, and we have to mitigate and manage those wants and needs. So what some of the panelists are sharing is something that we share as well. We only have 110 employees, and that fluctuates to 150 on construction season. So coming from Sky Harbor, worked with Jennifer Maples and also at Falcon Field and Caltrans, I was also just a number in those in those employments, but bringing those knowledge and experience, and this is what I share with my relatives, my siblings, is you put what you learn in a basket, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when you become a leader, you pour that knowledge and experience onto the ground where you're going to stand on as a foundation so that you know and you empathize, you understand what it takes to lead a group. And that includes diversity, understanding differences, and just being comfortable with it. Thank you.
So if getting leaders and developing leaders is as much about openness and fit, how many organizations are actively recruiting outside of the aviation industry? Because these aren't skill sets that are specific to aviation. And we kind of have a pretty long history where a majority of the people come from other airports or come from within aviation. And we talk about the importance of getting the right person. We talked earlier today when we were brainstorming this about how, okay, we have this list of the perfect fit, and the hiring is the most important thing, but we'd rather have the position vacant than hire the wrong person. And then we're fighting with keeping positions and budgets, and how do we get the pool bigger? Well, the pool getting bigger is hiring outside of aviation on some level. What's the panel's thoughts on that?
I know we look at multiple sources for our hiring. It depends on what the position is. For example, our chief financial officer at the airport did not have an airport background at all. She was attracted from Oracle, and she was recruited and selected for our chief financial officer. And she left Oracle because she felt she had a greater work-life balance at the airport. And actually, she's been there for 4 years now, and she loves what she does. She loves the whole airport industry. She loves the challenges that's presented to her. So that's a case where we brought in somebody in from a whole nother industry. We do have a couple senior positions that we're recruiting now. We are getting applicants from other industries, and at certain positions, we look to see what they can bring to the organization. And they can bring, coming from another industry, they can bring a different thought process and a diversity of thought that just makes the organization so much stronger. So in those cases, you're looking to make sure they basically can do the job. By the time I see them, they're deemed to do the job. It's like, how do they fit into our culture? that makes them a good candidate. So we look for, again, their diversity of thought, especially if they're coming from another organization. See their passion why they are coming to us, and two, that they would be a fit for us and they would be able to work into our culture. That doesn't mean we all think the same. It means they can work inside of our culture, because I've been in San Jose now for 3 years and just in this position for 3 months, and so the culture wasn't built overnight. It took years and years to create the culture we have, and that culture right now is, every day I go, I love my job. I look forward to coming to work, and that's pretty prevalent in our whole organization. And if they don't come and tell me, somebody asked, maybe it was yesterday, how do you know? Well, they do say that, but I had opened my LinkedIn, and I don't know why this prompted up, and maybe it was just the airport, but we had an engineer who has only been with us for 6 months. She graduated from college 6 months ago, and she had posted a picture. She was out on an apron project with some others, and she posted, I love my job. It's easy to come to work each day. I never thought I'd be in the aviation or airport industry, but here I am, and I'm loving it. And so that's a testament. And she posted that on LinkedIn, so it was out there in the social media world. And that's not just her. It's pretty common throughout our organization.
Other input for recruiting from outside of aviation? Outside of the airports? Right here?
Follow directions. Yeah, she's here to make sure we don't say anything we shouldn't. Those of you that know me know that I usually speak my mind pretty freely, especially Mike. I threatened to kill one of his engineers one day.
You didn't really do it, though.
I didn't kill him, but I threatened. First of all, we've talked a lot about recruiting. Every job I ever had, every leadership position since I was 21 years old as a Marine lieutenant, I didn't get to pick my team. I got what I got. When I got hired 3 years ago in San Diego, I got what I got. And yes, I've picked some airport managers since then. My job is to lead, to not demand something that I'm not willing to do, to make sure that my folks are doing the right thing all the time when nobody's looking. So it'd be great to be able to walk in the door and say, I want Mike Williams, maybe Joe Husband, but I don't ever have that opportunity. So we need to lead from the top, set the example, and treat people right. Is there anything, Joe? Okay.
So the good part is that sometimes Rod forgets he did retire from the Marine Corps, but we're happy to humor him that he's still there. So.
You can't get it out of me.
Nope, he can't. It's part of his basket. It's part of his basket. I've been fortunate, not to disagree with my friend, but I've been fortunate in my career to actually get the opportunity to start from the beginning 2 organizations. I was fortunate to get hired when I started my career in Palm Springs, California, with a brand new operations division. And of course, the penultimate, to get the opportunity to start up the Phoenix ADO, which my commercial is still the newest ADO in the country. When the region was looking to start up the office and made the initial hire of the 6 people, and the majority of us are still with the ADO, and we've continued this since then, but part of what we've done is try to get this picture that the airport doesn't end at the fence line. Your airport extends beyond your perimeter fence. And part of that, a lot of that has come with getting planners, engineers, financial people, in my case, from within the federal system, but outside of the FAA. So we have, my airport program specialist, Vanessa Selman, who some of you may know, came to us from OPM. Now she is learning and has learned about aviation and airports. And I'm fortunate with all of you in this room to be able to help teach her that. But what she does understand is data, how to communicate with people, how to be accountable for her words and her actions, and she conveys that message. So from my perspective, that's a culture that I'm trying to continue to impart in the ADO. And we've done that with other people too, where they bring a civil engineering background or a community planning background or an environmental background from within a federal system, in some cases even outside of the federal system. But bringing that different perspective, because again, we can teach people airports, we can teach people aviation, but can they work in a group setting? Can they be accountable for their words and their actions? And can they help impart that to others? So there are successes out there. Working in the public sector, as a lot of us do, has its own set of challenges. There are certain things you can and can't do, but there's always a way. And I'm a firm believer that if you have the vision and the will to move forward, there's a way to work through the process to again ensure you get the best candidate for your position, or again to not to get focused solely on the hiring question, but again do things in your organization to help shift the culture.
And from our perspective, a small airport, and basically kind of my background before aviation in the commercial fishing industry, being on the deck, working, moving up to a relief skipper, to a skipper, and when you're hiring, and I take what I learned there and I brought it into the aviation industry because it applies just almost right exactly the same thing. Safety is the biggest thing. You got to have the right person in the right place. That's not going to cause they're going to cover you. They're going to do their job. They're not going to deviate or do anything that's going to compromise your airport or the flying public. And I think taking that and looking at that from as far as a management, when I was a relief skipper, that was, okay, it's not mine. And I think there's people in this room, and I heard this from somebody I think a lot of us know that have been around here for a while, cautionnaires said to me when I took the job to actually be the airport manager, it's different. And it is different. Those of you in the room that actually, it's yours. And it's not really yours. I never think of it as mine, but it is. You're the way, it's the last stop. That's really different. And that, you only can understand that if you actually, because I wasn't there and I didn't get it when she said it to me. 12 years later, yeah, I get it. But I think the senior management team, anywhere you're at in that, you're working towards that and you're building your tool chest. Little example of what we do, and I learned this from another person a lot of us all know, is Gary Peterson. When I started in this industry, Gary had a program, was training all of us operations staff, and that program served San Mateo County very well. It also served the neighboring air carrier airports very well, especially San Jose. And you can look at a lot of people that actually went to San Jose, just really kind of was a next step.
We steal other people's, and steal some of Andy's people too.
Well, and saying that, I think we all kind of we need to work together too. And I know I talked to Kim about this. I've talked to Judy now, and building that relationship. We did that. We did that at San Carlos and Half Moon Bay. We're doing it at Palo Alto. And an example of that, don't take him. And some of you guys know this person. He's worked out. He's helped with the exhibitors, Michael Luton. Michael, graduate from UC Davis, and not in aviation, in chemical engineering, and he just wanted to, there was an opportunity for him to work for us, and we engaged him, challenged him, he's hooked. He's not going anywhere else. I mean, he might be going somewhere else, but he's hooked on the industry. We were able to take that employee, and I think, or take that person that had the capability and the attitude and the willingness to learn something that wasn't, his major. And I think there's other people out there, and I think you look at whether it's administrative, on the management side, we've done that with people from downtown, brought them out to the airport, and they're doing a great job for us, and they bring things into like institutional knowledge that we really needed, and we couldn't afford to bring someone probably from outside that didn't know the institutional knowledge and they may understand the aviation side of it, but they didn't have the institutional knowledge. So there's a balance there, and when you're building that team, and that's why I go back to even building your crew for your boat, for whatever fishery you're doing, it's the same. It's very similar. There's a lot of similarities of building that and putting the right people in the right places.
So 7th inning stretch. Who makes better leaders, women or men? All in favor of women? All in favor of men? All right. Who here is a leader?
Everybody should raise their hands.
Who here is a great leader?
Everybody, raise your hands.
Everybody. Who's? All right. Most people said I'm a leader. Most people said they're not a great leader. Why? I mean, I think that's a big start. Is we were talking about this earlier? Is knowing your weaknesses and making sure that your team builds up those weaknesses and complements you. In terms of next question, unless anybody has any parting thoughts on that one, I think we beat that one. Okay. What are the most important skills of airport leaders in 2038? So where we're going with that is that, part of this evolving leadership concept is that if we look back 25 years and we had a different style, let's go with that, and that today is more EQ based a little bit, it's more open, it's more whatever. So we're catching up with that, and we're turning the corner maybe or whatever. But what are we doing so we're not always catching up? So what does 20 years from now look like? Because those leaders are now the 25-year-olds that you're just hiring or whatever. And what are you doing for them to make sure that they're ready to lead in the future? And what makes you think you're qualified to do that? I made that one up. That's not on the list, sorry. And Jennifer's smirking, so she gets to go first.
I think going first is a lot of these.
So I kind of think that's not a trick question. There are certain basic principles in leadership that are fundamental that aren't going to change with time. And that I think we've heard a lot about is the ability to adapt, be flexible, evolve. Also, despite the rate at which technology and change is taking place, everyone is still an individual. There's still not a one-size-fits-all way to lead. And I would like to think that what the 25-year-olds, if you will, or the millennials that are being hired now, when they're into a leadership position, that they're going to have their own basket, as Orlando said, their foundation to build on, and they're going to learn from it, and they're going to grow, and they're going to impart that to others. I think that's part of the cycle. I think that's a big part of what we do and why it is so important that we bring new leaders up in the associations and in our organizations and our airports in order to keep that growth happening. Because when you stop learning and you stop growing, you pretty much die.
Well, I do have something to say. I just didn't want to be first again. 2038 is only 20 years away. It's really not that far. And the leaders of today, we need to be creating that vision that will get us there. And that's our job, is to create an inspiring vision so we can rally all our teams to head toward that vision. And it's our responsibility to create that next generation, as Jennifer was saying, and we need to do that now, and the employees that we hire today and what we hired yesterday are all going to be part of that workforce, And it's our obligation to make sure they're ready to take over 20 years from now, because at the end of the day, it's not that far away. And if I look back, I was working 20 years ago, and I was thinking, where was I working 20 years ago? And those that touched me, we need to be touching them too, and create those leaders of tomorrow.
So speaking from the only millennial up here, yeah, one of my mentors, I could say is a friend, Mr. Carl Newman, always told me, leaders lead from the front, not from the back. And your question is, what is leadership, or what does it look like in 20 years from now? I think it looks exactly the same if we're doing if we're doing the right steps. What are the right steps? We talk about evolving, we talk about adapting, but everyone in my organization, and for me personally, is a leader. It doesn't come with any kind of rank, doesn't come with the office you're in, the big couch you have in your office. It comes from your work ethic, your integrity, and how do we instill those in each person? And whether it's the person mopping the floor in the terminal, or it's the person signing your check. I think we all need to be diversified within and engaging with each individual and instilling qualities that ensure their leadership are bestowed upon others.
I'll make this really short, but Mike, get you on here. I think how we approach that, and I've been kind of struggling with that, trying to think, okay, how do we take some of our staff members and bring them forward and give them the experience. And what we found just it was a few years ago, and we were inviting some of our even ops personnel into the room and some of the more heavier discussions of planning and okay, date myself, but it was kind of like, okay, if I got invited into that room, I sat on my hands, kept my mouth shut, and listened. And my ops manager's going, what's going on here? These people are wading in, they're taking the meeting over almost and stuff. And we were kind of talking about it. And Barry, I'm looking at you because we had this discussion, and I'd love to hear your point on it here if you get the opportunity, because it was really interesting. We had this talk. I said, wow, this next gen, they're not like us. They want to really wade in right away, and it's how we work with that, and I think it's really important. So, hopefully we get to you.
I think, well, what I would offer for that is that it's a two-way street, and what it looks like in 20 years from now, and for those of you in the room who will be in this spot in 20 years, it's a two-way street. And there's a lot of opportunities out there, but are you the person that raises your hand when they come up? I think back in my experience, and a gentleman named Alan Smoot, who ran Palm Springs for many years, asked the question one day, well, we think we're going to restart our terminal construction program. Is anyone interested? How my life would be very different if I had not raised my hand. So my point is, again, take an active role you as a person in where you want your future to take you and what you want it to be. Take advantage of those opportunities. Are you prepared to look at moving to a different airport? Are you prepared to get out of your comfort zone and come off the operations group and take advantage of an opportunity to go work in marketing? Leaders will give you opportunities. We can do that. As my grandpa said, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So that would be my challenge to those of you who will be up here in 20 years. Are you prepared to take advantage of those opportunities when they come forward?
You wanted you to speak?
I got nothing to add to this esteemed group.
Then
All right.
a song.
So, you know, I view leadership a little like parenting, you know? You can have two kids in the same household, come out of the same womb, but you've got to treat them completely different. It's an art, not a science, right? There's no formula. The other thing, so if you've got the millennial that's jumping in and he wants to run the place the first week he's on the job, there's a way to handle that, right? And you play for the moment.
Over here.
So I think a great leader celebrates successes and also accepts failures. And so you have to let the people fail and also acknowledge that. I'd like to share a story of one of the greatest leaders that I had as a child was someone who seemed intimidating at the time. It was the grade school principal of ours. And what he would do was every month of your birth year, he would bring you into his office, and for 5 months he'd discuss what's going on in your life as a 5th grader or 4th grader or 6th grader. And he'd spend that 5 minutes with you and just having a heart-to-heart talk. And that was 35 years ago, and it resonated well with me. So I think the point is to connect as a leader with people on any level that you can.
You know, yesterday morning, Mindy talked about 5 generations of people and what they look for in leadership and how they view leadership. So the question about where we'll be 20 years from now is exactly what Joey said. We're going to be in the same place. How we handle it is going to be different, but the reality is people look for the same things from their leaders regardless of the generational change. How the leader responds to those challenges, that, you know, they want to be trusted, they want to be challenged, they want to have the autonomy to meet the challenge with their own solutions. Those things don't change. That's people. That's what motivates us. And honestly, I don't think 20 years from now people are really going to be different than they were 200 years ago. The same motivating factors are there. It's just how do we recognize that and bring out their best. And I've always felt that leadership, if you pay attention to your staff, the leaders rise to the top. When there's a challenge, whether you assign somebody the responsibility or not, if there's more than 2 people involved, somebody is going to take a leadership role because that's their nature. The people in this room are all leaders, so we should not expect all of our staff to want to be what we are. There are people that want to come to work every day, not assume any responsibility, do their job, and go home. That's okay because every organization needs those worker bees. So don't look for leaders out of everyone that works for you, but pay attention because the leaders will make themselves obvious to you just by their conduct. And that's the person that you invest the time and the effort and the money and the resources into developing leadership.
One aspect that I've not heard mentioned that a leader needs to be very careful with is dealing with the disciplinary problems. The bad apples, the ones that obviously aren't going to fit after you've seen them operate for a while. The one that needs to be court-martialed tomorrow. How a leader deals with that is looked at very carefully by every other employee that you lead. So the important aspect is to think about it very carefully, what you're going to do with that individual, how you're going to prosecute that case, and of course realizing that you've got to work within your organization's rules and regulations and procedures. But there's still a lot of flexibility in what a leader can do with the disciplinary problems, and that gets watched And I know that because at LAX I had 1,500 maintenance and custodial people. Not all of them great. There's always a few bad ones. And whenever you deal with that, your employees already know about this person. So they're wondering what's going to happen. And then when you deal with it, that's looked at very carefully, and it marks you as what kind of leader you are.
I'd like to add on that just real quick. I've had the disfortunate pleasure of letting some people go, but I think a good leader highlights the attributes that a person is doing that's not fitting the organization. You give them the tools, the opportunities to grow, give them the opportunity to change, let them see the vision, send them to leadership school, send them to whatever it is that you need them to do. If you give them all the opportunities, the outcome might just be great. Of course, we all been in a situation where some people aren't fit for the organization and you just have to let them go. But as a good leader, we try to extract as much as we can from an individual to find the root of the problem and eventually maybe turning it around.
And just to add on to that, that's one of the important things for a leader, to know what is going on in the organization, because everybody knows more than you do, which is unfortunate. But you really have to look to see what the root of the issue is. Sometimes there are issues in their families. There could be issues somewhere in the organization and maybe not being treated right behind the scenes. But you have to find what that root is and deal with that root. You have to deal with that employee too, but is termination the first course of action? And granted, there are some egregious that's the way you have to go. But you've got to get to know what that situation is and do it confidentially. Tied my tongue there, and find out why things are the way they are. And granted, not all employees are in the right fit for them. The larger the organization you have, the more kind of flexibility you do have. And if you do release the individual, you need to kind of tell them what happened, because that's a life experience for them. And they may move on to another organization that they're a great fit, they got on the right bus, and they turn out to be a great employee. Then there's others that are a little bit more challenged, but you need to work with them and really give them a life lesson as you go through that. An example, at an airport 3 airports ago, I was given this individual in my work group that was not performing in the other work group, and it wasn't like they were giving me a present when the person was transferred over to me. But I took the time to get to know the person, see what their interests were, and try to help them in their new role. Well, then it wasn't too long, maybe a year later, the vice president came to me and said, well, we're going to move this function over to you. And he goes, and I said, okay, do I get people? Or he goes, no, you have to do it with your existing staff. So I went home and I was thinking about what I had over the weekend. I thought, oh, I know it was this person that I got as a present, because this was where the interest was. And so I went back and I told the VP and I said, oh, this is who I'm going to sign it to. And he goes, are you sure? And I go, yeah, I think it's worth the risk. And that person has absolutely excelled in that role. It was where her interest was. There wasn't, all the issues were now non-issues. But it's just, you've got to get to know the people and get to know the root reason why things are happening.
Just to dovetail on that, and actually to kind of speak to Rod's point earlier about inheriting teams, I've inherited my fair share of teams and individuals with changing positions over the years. And the one practice that I have stuck to religiously is what I call the blank slate. You know, especially if you're in a large organization, a lot of people have been around for a while, and you hear things, or you're going to get this person, and so people want to warn you about them, or you've already heard it before. And so my philosophy has been, everyone's got a blank slate. None of that happened before. We're going to start from this point in time and go forward, and give folks the opportunity to reinvent themselves. And the reason why I think that is so important, especially in an organization where if you spend a lot of time, people stop being able to see you in any other way than what was associated with you 10 years ago or however long. So giving folks the opportunity to reinvent themselves can be huge and can be very effective.
Back in the, or back there. And we have about 5 more minutes.
Good morning. In terms of inheriting, your staff and your management skills, what would you say in terms of wanting to change the long-standing culture that you've inherited, especially when being on an airport, divisions and staff are so far spread out, and it's kind of a me versus them or us versus them, long-standing animosity? How would you work towards changing that culture when you're the new management in a long-standing, that long-standing environment?
We said 5 more minutes.
That's a big one.
Who wants to start that one? Joey, you're up.
Joey.
I have a little bit of experience with that. When Carl Newman asked me to come run his operations department, and we expanded 400%. There was a culture there that there's a lot of people who were there for a long time, and I'm a millennial, so I was hitting the ground running and trying to make all these policies and changes. But before I did that, I really wanted to engage with the people who were there the longest, share the vision, and try to get their buy-in first. Trust is a big thing. When you have that, if you could establish that trust and get their input, get their feedback, like they're wanted, and their input is meaningful and it has value, then I think it's going to be successful.
I just want to go back to something Jennifer said and share a little experience that I had. I've got an employee who was less than stellar. If there was somebody that's going to get the tractor stuck, it was him. If there's somebody who's going to break a window, it was him. Somebody going to run a mower into a car, it was him. And we found ourselves, me and the other admin staff, kind of talking disparagingly about him when he wasn't there. And it came to a point where I thought, maybe that is part of the problem. Because you can't have these conversations and not give off some kind of vibe to these people. And so when I got the job as director, I sat down and I said, we need to stop this. We need to change our attitude and behave differently about him. Saw a remarkable change almost instantly. I mean, the accidents have stopped, the behavior has stopped, the open door is there, he'll come in and he'll talk. What you're doing behind their back, when you don't think they know, I believe that vibe gets out there. It's just something to keep in mind as you're dealing with these troubled individuals.
That's leadership.
I'll walk over here. And just so you know, as culture changes, I'll tell you that I come from a co-located military installation with civilian operations, lots of confusion, traditions, most definitely. It goes by incremental infusion. So you want to add your influence, you first, and then it becomes contagious. And so you want to make sure you do things incrementally. If not, there's a culture change and shock that happens. But be very clear and consistent, especially disciplinary issues. And then also when you bring in new staff, you want to make sure that they understand those visions, values, mission, what we're doing objectively too. So incremental infusion. That's a new hip word. I'm gonna just spot to brand that. Incremental infusion. Watch out, shirt's coming. Here we go.
Oh yeah, Nana. Not ani tani anal sokhuna tani dahiki sihasindo not e bahen sindo lel. We're all leaders in this room, and our core values is what we need to stand on. And I'm looking at Joey and thinking, where was I in 20 years? I was under the leadership of Alice Primrose at Sky Harbor, and the foundation that she mentored me as an intern is really important to think about. So for us here as leaders, I mean, what is our vision? It's not Navajo word is not. What do we envision for this industry, for this organization in 20 years? Do we want to encourage a sense of progress for us at our own individual airports, organizations, or this organization? What do we want? What are you guys telling us? And so as leaders, we have to really encourage our younger folks to get into industry and to replace me. I need that. I want that. We have to have that. So as leaders, the Navajo word for leader is nat'ani. As nat'anis, how do we lead this industry to the next generation? And that's, I think, what I'm hearing here is we have to do this together, not separate, not divided, together.
The one thing no one mentioned, and I failed to mention as well, is that we need to have fun doing it.
We always have fun. You probably see that. Everyone's all ready to go in here.
Last
but
question.
we like to have fun.
Any last questions? One last one? All right, last one right here in the front, please.
First of all, thank you for having this session. It's a great session. We talk about culture and leaders. The foundation starts with culture and knowing the vision and the core values. What do we stand as an organization? And one of the things that Joe was talking about is being in the front, being visible. I think that 20 years from now, if we all had somebody that took us under their wing and kind of brought us to where we are right now. We got to continue that, and we got to be visible to every staff member. If we work in the airport, we need to walk that airport. How many times did we say hello to everybody? Did we say thank you to everybody? Did we pick up that piece of paper and set an example for the next person? And I think that's where it starts. It starts with having the foundation and being visible as a leader where people could follow you.
Thank you very much. So we want to thank the speakers, the panel, and a donation has been made in each of their names to the Wounded Warrior Project, so thank you very much. We have certificates here. And then thank you all for listening and participating. And then I think we need to clear and then come back, but lunch is next. But I think we have to clear the room by, well, now, so they can do their thing. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Just remember, general membership meeting 11:30, starts at 11:30. I know it is now, so about 5-10 minutes, then make your way on back.